So, if you want to look at the world and you're courageous enough, basically everyone can see two options. Okay, what is happening in our world which is so incredibly complex that I think nobody understands it anymore in its totality? But is there something maybe underlying that I could understand, that you could understand, yeah, that would help us understand everything that's going on? I know that sounds a little, big, but the basic thought, the underlying thought might be really small. So one thing I found out, and maybe you already know it from my previous videos, is there are two different mindsets, two different ideas why we are here, which transform into experiences, which transform into behavior, which transform into things that are happening, which we are experiencing again. And the first idea or mindset or behavioral mode is we are here. Everything here is about survival. And think for yourself, ask yourself, if I think I'm here for survival, there are many, many, many consequences that come after that idea. My whole behavior will be oriented towards the idea of, well, I need to behave like that to survive. If there are two individuals, for example, starving to death and over there is some food, they will fight for the food. Who gets the food will be surviving. Or what I really like is, the idea of survival of the fittest. It says it even in the sentence. Of course, for surviving, it's best to be the fittest. The fastest, the fittest, the strongest, the most powerful, the one with the most weapons, the most clever. Because survival is always against each other. I want to survive against you. You want to survive against me. We want to survive against them. It's a world of againstness, which is totally okay, because the principle of survival demands that. But, for the last hundreds and thousands of years, we humans have made the experience, at least most of us, that this world, this life is about survival. Because most of us, their daily, tasks were just about surviving. How do I get my food? How do I get my night's rest? What happens if I get sick? Where do I get my warm fireplace in the wintertime? And for most of the people living on this planet, that was the main focus of their everyday life. Yeah, there were a few people that were living kind of luxurious, kind of safe life. All of the others were working for them, so they could have that life. But basically our understanding of our world was, this is a world of survival. And the image that comes to my mind about that is, there was a huge planet, and we were that small, and we were just only a few on this planet. Not 8 billion, many, much fewer. And so we thought, oh my God, there's such a big planet, there's so much wild nature, wild animals, whatever out there, that we need to conquer it and we need to survive on that planet. So we were against that planet. Give me what I need to survive. I rip it out of your heart and I tear down the forest and take out the minerals and everything that, which is in the idea of survival, very understandable and totally okay. The next step is taking care of securing your survival. Every farmer needs some hay in his or her barn. Once the summer is over and fall is coming and you're expecting winter. And you need the hay in your barn to feed your livestock through the wintertime, which is totally understandable and okay. And the more hay you have in your barn, the more you have secured the survival of your livestock and therefore of yourself. Very clear, very obvious, very simple. So wanting more, needing more, herding more, stalking more, that are all aspects of survival. And in our world, what we can see is this is not only outside with our bodily and physical needs, it's also inside, in our mind, in our thinking, in our planning, in our taking care of things. Are you my friend, or could you maybe take something away from me that I could need for my survival? And there are only a few societies on this planet, societies that have working, social systems, that have retirement plans, that have public health care plans, that are a little closer to securing the survival of everyone. But still in these societies you can see that the survival thoughts, the survival mode is still working inside, because outside I'm quite okay, I have my house, but it's much better to have a second house because then I'm much safer. Or I have, my money and I'm but having much, much more, it's much better, it's much safer. Most very rich people build up more and more and more. And you know what? As we said, more is an aspect of survival, and a good aspect, because the more you have, the better you can survive, the safer is your survival, and the more in the future you and your family, whatever, can survive. So it's securing and securing and securing the survival. But it's still survival thinking, and it's still living in survival mode, in a survival world. And if you look at the world today, we are not a few people on this planet anymore and facing a huge planet that we need to somehow survive, an angry or hostile nature. We are incredibly many people living on a much relatively smaller planet. And we're getting through, climate change, through all the plastic issues that we don't even address today. Plastic is everywhere. We're getting in a situation where the survival of the planet in its today's form is not secured anymore. Our survival mode living on this planet is endangering our living on that planet itself. Who doesn't want to see it that way? Look away, pretend it's not there, But I think if you want to take care of the planet, the first thing, and the good thing, is to look at what's happening. We cannot not look at it and wait till it's over, because if it's over, we are over. And I think many, many people who pretend, no, this is not happening, they don't really pretend this is not happening. I think they're just incredibly unhappy and overwhelmed because nobody knows what to do. We know only certain measurements, but they are not in accordance with each other. We're not working with each other. We are not working together. And you know what? I think togetherness is what we need. But from our survival thinking, how should we ever get to a place of togetherness when survival thinking is againstness? What's happening right now in the world? American government, Russia, the wars, the Chinese people going to see, how every big nation trying to enlarge their influence, every politician trying to be a stronger one. Well, you know what? In a survival world, that's totally okay. That makes total sense, because survival of the fittest. That's the goal. Growth and survival of the fittest. And that's what they all try to do. So in their mindset, which is a very old mindset, because it's very, very old, hundreds of centuries old, in their mindset, they're doing the right thing. But our survival world if you look at it a little bit, what will happen? In a few years from now, there will be big portions of the planet where probably you cannot grow enough food for all the people anymore. So what will the people do? They would do what you would do and what I would do. They would live there and go somewhere to survive where you still can grow food, logically. But there will not only be 1 or 1,000 or 10,000 or 1,000,000. There will be hundreds of millions. So they will go where they will think it's not so hot and we can grow food and we can survive. And what will all the others do then? How will we deal with the millions of people that either will come to our country or we will be the ones who have to come to their country? Well, we can build a survival world. We can continue building our survival worlds, which is we can build walls around our cities and keep the others outside and even let them starve to death out there. But the world we will create or have when you go into this direction will be a world that's probably be like in the Hunger Games, or it will be a world like in Mad Max. Yeah? And ask yourself, I totally don't judge it, I know my answer. Do you want to live in a world like that? Even on the better side, inside the city, with all, the food and everything, and all the others out there, do you want to live like that? Is that a world you want to participate in and you want to go for? I think this is the very elemental question that you and I and every one of us have to ask themselves right now, because this is what we are going to deal with, going down that lane, the survival lane. And in the end, we will somehow fight against each other. Why? Not because we want to, but because we will have to survive. Because all of us will not be able to survive on a shrinking planet or on a planet where the usable land is shrinking. So, what could be an alternative? And I think that's where it gets really, really exciting. It gets really exciting because why shouldn't we, all the people that are living on this planet right now, and maybe the next 2 generations, why should not we be the ones? Why should not we be the generations that are at a point to completely and totally change the game that we are playing? Change the game from a survival game to a living game, I call it, pick up the Weiter mod. Like a mod in a computer game is that, oh, well, this is all about survival. Yeah, I'm really good carrying this mod around in surviving. Yeah, and we are really good in surviving. Our super rich on the planet are the best in surviving. But maybe for the next level in that game, it's not the best mod we could ever use. The Weiter mod, the mod of the life, of the living, of vitality, yeah, of being with each other, togetherness, about playing the game and not only surviving it. Maybe that's our next step in the development of all of humanity. What I think is incredible that the survival societies, fear, scarcity, against each otherness, hoarding, wanting more, these societies kind of conquered the world, of course, which is very clever. It's not clever. It's logical, because the survival societies are fear-driven societies. And if I'm scared, I need to develop tools to be better than you, because you could attack me, so I need to defend myself. And that's also an explanation why so many inventions came from the militaries. Because it's about better, bigger, stronger, faster. Survival. And of course, a Weiter mod society, a society that's just living in peace, lovingly, friendly, with each other, doesn't have to develop all these weapons, doesn't have to develop all these tools, because it has everything it needs. So, but continuing that, the survival societies, which all of us are, brought us, interestingly enough, to a technological level where we are today. And yes, at the same time, it brought us the environmental problems that we have today. But isn't it interesting that at the same time, nearly just like the same years or decade, where we encounter our problems with our planet, we are ready to encounter them because we have the technology, because our technology is a technology of information and transparency. We can reach every person on the planet with the pressing of one button. 20 years ago, that was impossible. One president of a country could call the president of another country, they could talk, they could, talk about some measurements, but it was way too slow, because the interesting global problems we have today are global. I'll give you an example. Let's say you have a little garden and you try to be totally environmentally conscious, you separate your trash, you recycle, do everything that, have everything nice, and your neighbor also has a garden and burns car tires there because he thinks he needs to survive. So your garden, your air is also polluted and wasted. That means you cannot deal with the global problem in the island of your garden. We can only deal with global problems globally, which means, and whoever doesn't like to hear that, that means together. And that's, of course, an incredible challenge, and maybe even fearful for many of us, because it's the opposite of what we have been thinking so far. It's the opposite of surviving, of being scared of you, or being, at least suspicious a little bit, or not knowing how to, being careful, being very careful. Me here, you there, and we need to find a way of togetherness, a way of, somehow working together. Because the living mode means we are together. I give you an example of what I understand by we are living together. Survival means you and I are starving and there's an apple, and off we go. Who will survive? Living means you and I are fed. Basically, there's an apple. What will we do? We will share it. Because you are fed anyways, you don't need it for something. I am fed, I don't need it. So we could enjoy it together. Enjoyment is an aspect of vitamod, of living. Togetherness is living. Peace is living. Yeah? Sharing is living. And as long as any one person on that planet is still thinking this is all about survival, there is no real togetherness. As you see with the garden, if I keep my garden nicely, but you burn your tires, there's no togetherness. Why do you burn your tires? Because you think you have to, for example, to survive. I can only go into living mode when my basic survival is guaranteed. As long as I have to take care of my basic survival, I have to take care of my basic survival. A key aspect of survival is me first. Because, if it's not me first, you survive and I die, because you get the apple. So, and that's not even wrong. If it's about survival, every one of us wants to survive. So to create the possibility, the platform for real togetherness means to create a system where basic survival, I'm talking about food, water, basic shelter, basic healthcare, is guaranteed for everyone. Only if that is guaranteed, ask yourself, you could start thinking of, okay, how would a together world where you're not my enemy, you don't take anything I need, because I don't need anything anymore for my survival. I might need bigger things or, more fun things or whatever, but basically, I don't need anything anymore to survive. How would that change your behavior in relationships? How would that change your attitude towards anyone, everyone, on everything? With this world, we can only continue in togetherness. We can only take care of this planet together. Because today we are so many, and that little planet is in our hands, if you want to speak so. So, with againstness, it won't work. Because then we say, why should we, if they don't? Why should we, reduce carbon dioxide if they don't? And every one of us says that. There's no one who does not say it. Why should we, poorer people, if they have amassed their fortunes? No, I don't. So we have to create the context, the circumstances that allow us maybe the next step, the next level of human development. Not only individual human development, that too, but development of all of humankind. Do we really think that this development is over? Do you really think that we have developed to the best we ever could? Does it feel so to you? Is that the end? Is that it? Is that where we want to be forever? Yeah. Or do you really want to wait for the market to create that development for us? The market, all the markets we live in today are survival markets. It's survival of the fittest. It's make the best profits. Yeah? It's, give and make products worse and worse and worse and take more and more and more for it. We see it right today. And everyone feels it. Everyone feels it that with the alley of survival, this is not going to go any further. The question is, what if we turn the switch to living, to a life that was meant to be here for us? It's like, are we in a computer game just to be in there, stand in a corner and hopefully not be, die and whatever, game over? Or are we in a game that's about to be played, where we have to, go through the training levels, learn, okay, there is a little bit to know about survival, and this means how we need to survive. Okay, you know what? Let's kind of check that. Okay, survival. We know the game of survival totally. We know that if we go down the survival alley, we will end up definitely 100% in the Middle Ages on a new technological level, but in the Middle Ages. From the systems. Towers, castles, bridges that we can pull up or down. So some people that will hide in there and the others will be out there. The Middle Ages. We know it. To go down that drain. I would totally vote for, let's be the generation to change the game. Why? Because for the first time ever in human history, we can. For the first time we can. We have the technology to reach each and every one of us. And we have, with that, we have the possibility to start the first little thoughts about thinking of how would a living world even be and look like. And that's actually my main question to you now. It's my main, I want to shout that out and say, you know what we could do? A world, imagine a world. This is the basis. Without it, it's not going to work. Imagine a world where your basic survival is guaranteed and has been guaranteed for a long time. Why am I saying for a long time? So we don't deal with the problems of the transition from here to there, which is, oh, tomorrow, but so it's easier to imagine the vision. You say, a vision you imagine as if you have always been there. If you imagine you grew up, I grew up, everyone grew up with, okay, with the knowledge, the security of nothing really except I do whatever, do some stupid things like jump down a mountain. Yeah, nothing basically can happen to me. Basic survival is guaranteed. I have my food, I have my shelter, yeah, and if something hurts, I can go to a doctor. And maybe basic education is also part of it. And how would your life look like? For me, a good example for living mode again is two good friends. Think about your best friend. You wouldn't fight, you would not, be against each other, you would be with each other, you would be peaceful, you would have a good and nice conversation, you would think about interesting things like we do now. Yeah, you would work on yourself, you could develop your inner being, you could develop your psyche, yeah? You could be fantastic things, yeah? Because you had the time for it, you were not in a rush to get the apple, yeah? You could live the life you wanted. I do what I want is only an option when I don't have to do things to survive. So survival world is a world of I have to. Force. Yeah? Living world is a world of I want to. But as we have spent 4,000 years in the I have to world, most of us, it's very hard to even think of, if I really could do what I wanted to, what would that be? What would I do with my life? And that's the question I want to ask you, because I'm asking myself the question all the time. Because this question needs to be answered before we can change anything. Because we need to find out, let's see, this is Weitermord, living. The life is here to be lived. We will only choose that alternative if it's better than this one. Tiny little bit is enough, but it needs to be better. But what I found out, and what I think is absolutely gorgeously fantastic, is that this world can only be created by each and every one of us together. Nobody can tell you, you need to do this, yeah, because this is a world of voluntariness. This is a world of freedom. Weitermord is freedom. Survival mode is force. So we can only be together in this life on this planet if each and every one of us decides so. That's essential. I thought for a long time, and it always takes a long time till I make the next video because I'm busy and I have a lot of stuff to do and I'm trying lots of different means to bring that out, what I think. So, But I thought for a long time I wanted to do a podcast where I want to give examples on how Weiter mode, how living mode would look like. How would we, be in our relationships? How would people be in their workplaces? How would we interact? Everything like that. And yeah, I can probably give a few examples. But I'm only a psychologist. Yeah. I can only think, for example, how a carpenter would live Weiter mode, living mode. But maybe I'm not even right. So what I would much rather know is you as a carpenter, for example, who builds cabinets, for example. Would the togetherness world be an attractive alternative for you? And we can only find that out if you ask yourself, okay, your basic survival is guaranteed. Would you still do the job you're doing today? Would you continue to be a carpenter? I guess that many of us would, because this is a beautiful job. It's a beautiful, opportunity to express yourself. How would you do it? Would you do it in the same way? Oh, probably many people would already adjust a little bit here, because in a world where you can do what you want to do, nobody can ever put any pressure on you anymore. So probably you would, maybe if you love your work or you like your work, you would probably still continue doing that work, still building cabinets, but maybe you would build them in a different way, with different passion, maybe with not so much time pressure. Maybe you would love it more. Maybe you would take your time. Maybe there could be nobody saying, yeah, you need to be done by tomorrow and and make it cheap quality and whatever, because that's not fun in your work. It's not fun in my work too, to do cheap quality. So with that freedom, how would your work change? Would it change, from the content, or would it just change from how you do it? How would your relationship change? If you don't have to be in a relationship anymore, for example, for material security. And also not for the material security of your children. And yeah, there are some countries where this is not the first interest in relationships anymore, but there are many countries and many people in that world where this is one main reason for a relationship or a marriage or a family. And I'm talking, and I hope I'm talking to everyone out there, everyone, because every person on the planet, if every person on the planet asks herself or himself that question, how would I be? Who would I be in a world that's about living and not about surviving? Could that be a more attractive world than the survival world? Would I be different, and would I like that person, that different person? Would I like the me in Weiter mode? Or do I prefer the me in survival mode? And the great challenge, and it sounds like it's a nearly impossible challenge, but that's the cool thing about new developments, is that we can only change to Weiter mode, as far as I see it today, if every one of us says yes to it. Because that's a condition of Weiter mode, of living together, that I cannot live together with you if you say no to it. So I have to say yes, you have to say yes, you have to say yes, and you, everyone. And I know that sounds really outstandingly overwhelming, but I don't even think it is so overwhelming, because if there's still somebody who says no, my next question would be, okay, how, maybe it's about a thing about imagination, and the question would be, how would that Weiter mode world, that living world, need to be so that you can say yes to it? As I said, everyone, we can only enter Weiter mode voluntarily. That means everyone has to say yes to it. That means this world has to be a world where everyone says yes to. And we can shape that world. We can, for example, make rules that the freedom and the basic guarantee of survival is guaranteed. That's a rule for everyone, freedom and basic survival. And I think, remember the switch from the beginning. Today there's an incredibly complex world. There's the switch on that side. Turning the switch to the living side, to the vital side, I don't know how this world will look like. Nobody today knows how this world will look like. And why not? Because we never thought about it. We never created it, even not in our minds. Maybe there were some science fiction authors here and there that tried to do that, but this is something we can only do globally, we can only do collectively. And this one switch will create an incredibly complexity, like the other side of the switch today, just in a new form, with a new basic understanding, with a new idea of who we are, with a new idea of why we are here, with a new idea of what's all that about. Is it just about survival? Let's go through it and kind of try to survive and then we die anyways? Or is it about, hey, what does living actually mean? What can I experience here in this world when I don't have to take care physically or mentally about my survival all the time? I would love to invite every person on that planet, and I know that sounds a little big, every person on that planet. Think about your profession, think about your life, think about your relationship. You don't have to tell anyone. Do it secretly at home when you go to sleep or in the morning when you wake up. Nobody needs to think you're crazy, but think it about yourself. Would living mode, vital mode, be an attractive alternative for you to what we have today? Because one thing I guarantee, if we decide to think together, work together, act together, we can solve the problems of this planet in no time. In no time. Look at most of the problems on our planet. They are against each other problems. In a real, guaranteed with each other world, we can solve them in no time. Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong here. So, my deepest longing would be, if every one of you, this is what I do all day long, think about where in my life am I encountering survival attitudes, survival behaviors, how could I change them into living attitudes, living behaviors? And again, start creating this vision together, because the together mode can only be created together. Nobody can be here and says, this is how it works. The only thing I'm trying to say is, this is how we could get there, by each and every one of us doing their part in, oh, this would be a life where I want to participate in. And this is how it has to be. This is how it has to look like. This is how it will be. And I'm asking all of you out there, all carpenters, all firemen, all doctors, all bankers, all nurses, all kindergarten teachers, all teachers, all psychologists, of course, and all farmers, and all the people that don't come into my mind right now. Think about, how would you change? Would you change your job? What other job would you do? What would you do to give your life a meaning if you don't have to give it the only poor meaning of, okay, this is here to survive? What would be the meaning of life? What job would you do? How would you do your job? What would be this life then? And only if all of us say, wow, that doesn't sound, at least it doesn't sound worse than that. And it sounds like, yeah, there could be a future in that. Then we can start deciding for that. And again, I don't think that any person alone can do that. We need all the great brains out there. We need you and you and you and everyone out there, not for America, not for the army, but for this planet. We need you. We all need all of us to take care of this. And I'm sure the first counter-argument, just to also put that in here, the first counter-argument to something you're guaranteeing basic survival is, oh, nobody's going to work anymore. How should we ever finance that? Look at everything that we have financed so far. Don't you think that we can finance that? We have financed much bigger things. You know why? Because we wanted to. Because we decided for it. And nobody's going to ever work anymore. That's just not true. Ask yourself, would I immediately quit my job? Yeah, if you do a shitty job that you do just to survive, you would probably quit it immediately. But that doesn't mean you would lie on the beach forever. You would probably think about, okay, and what useful do I want to do with my life? If I hate my job, yeah, I would just immediately quit it. But there are so many people that hate their job, quit it whenever they are allowed to quit, and then they're the chiefs of the volunteer firefighters because they love it and they don't get a cent for it. So it's not true that nobody would not do anything anymore. We would just change from doing the survival things to doing the living things. The things that fulfill us, that give us meaning, that give this whole game here meaning, sense, and an interesting idea. So let's change the game if we want to. If you find that this is interesting, attractive enough, let's change the game, the survival game, to a living game, to a wider game. Let's not go down the drain. If not we, who else should make that decision? If not now, what are we waiting for? What else is supposed to happen? I would be so happy if we just realize that it's us. Not anybody else, not anybody out there, not anybody in the future. Maybe it's us. How cool would that be?